I'm going to spend my days meditating, doing yoga and drawing, because they're the three things that I love doing. And what came of that was that I was just living in this space of self-love, because I was doing the things that I love doing, and I was just bringing them into my life. And by kind of living in this space where you're loving yourself and your frequency raises, and then suddenly the synchronicities start to occur and you start to attract things that are more aligned with you, and then life changes.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Deeper with Sophie Josephina. Today, I am joined by Nic Warner, and Nic Warner is let me check my notes, is a men's coach, a sexual empowerment, and an intimacy teacher. And I've been following Nic for quite some time on Instagram, and I'm so excited to finally have him on the podcast. So welcome, Nic.
Thank you for having me. Thanks for having me on.
So, Nic, for people who probably or maybe don't know you yet, do you want to just share a little bit who you are and what your story is? Because I know you have quite a beautiful story to tell.
Yeah, my life looked very different 6 or 7 years ago. I was working as an architect. I was married to a very beautiful woman. We lived in a very beautiful apartment. I was ticking all society's boxes, and I was deeply unhappy and drinking a lot, taking a lot of drugs, partying a lot in Berlin. And my life got me to a point where my partner had an affair and my whole kind of world just imploded. And I was left with basically the only viable option, which was to go on a journey and to kind of rediscover who I was, my deepest truth, and not who I was when I was trying to fulfill somebody else's wishes or dreams or my dad's, or however that looked like. So I spent 3.5 years traveling, healing, searching for teachers and healers and gurus and whatever I could find to kind of heal the parts of me that I felt were in most need of healing. So that took me deep into silence and meditation and into the jungle and through Tantra. And then eventually that got me into polarity. And then eventually I got into men's work. And I've now been doing this for a few years.
Wow. Oh, wow. Straight into the depths. Yeah. Yeah, I was reading your story on your website, and I saw a little bit about like hitting rock bottom and hearing you speak about it now. And I had my own like dark night of the soul 7 years ago. And that moment, like I lost just everything in the space of like 2 weeks. And it was at a moment almost comical, because I was like, what's happening, God? Like literally nothing is surviving. Okay, this is falling in, this falling in, this falling away. And while in it, it was one of the roughest things I've ever had to gone through. But now I can just see the rebirth that was in there. And because it was so extreme, I got to literally like, yeah, really, it felt like I was reborn on every level and really challenged everything that I thought was normal. I thought it was normal to have a corporate job. I thought that that's what my life should be like. I thought I was doing everything right. And actually, hey, is this actually how I want to live? Is this actually what I care about? No, it's not. So
Exactly.
how is
Yeah, we
your
get
luck?
told, oh, it's fantastic. I woke up one day sweating from a nightmare, suicidal, and I'm just like, what do I do? And I called my sister, who's a psychologist, and she's like, just go help someone. Like, I can't help myself. And she's like, just find someone to help. And I went on the, like a Craigslist type thing, and found a woman that she needed 24-hour care for her autistic child, and her husband had left her, and she had nothing, and all she could do was take care of a child. And I sat there in the kitchen with her, and she was empty. She had nothing. And I just then reflected on my life, and it's like, whoa, okay, there is, I have, I have, my life is not that bad. Like it just gave me a different perspective. And it's like, okay, so what do I want? I want to heal. I want to go to the jungle. I want to do these things that I haven't been able to do because I was ticking all the boxes that my father wanted and that society wanted. And then I started to reveal this, a yearning for something deeper. And I met all these people and this synchronicity started to happen. And it was like little breadcrumbs from the universe. Like, okay, keep going. Like, this is it. This is the direction. And the deeper I went, the more exciting and the more edgy and the more uncomfortable it got. And I got to this space. I was sitting in the jungle and was coming to the end of the first 7.5 months of my journey. And I was like, I know part of me, I know my head wants something and I know that my heart wants something, but I can't decipher which one wants what. Mm-hmm. And part of me wanted to go back and be with my partner and continue to work in architecture and just live this life because it was comfortable and it was easy and it was, it didn't make me happy, but it kind of ticked all the boxes that I was looking for. But the other part of me was like, no, just give up everything. Like, leave the marriage, leave the career, leave the lifestyle and just start again. And I was like, oh, no, that's way too much. And I said, how do you tell the difference? Yeah. I asked somebody, how do you tell the difference between your head and your heart? And you do the thing that scares you the most. And I was just like, oh, because I knew I knew I had no choice. And then began the next phase of life, basically.
I'm sure many men listening to this story right now must be like, oh, damn, that's exactly where I am. And maybe it stays your whole life that there's a part of you that wants to burn it all to the ground and a part that wants to just be really comfortable and safe and easy and not a worry in the world. So you've been saying this beautiful thing of, I was living the life my father wanted for me. I was living the life society wanted for me. A man listening to you right now, if he's kind of questioning whether he's doing that, how would he know if he's living the life he wants to or the life that his father wanted for him?
Well, for me, it's when I was growing up, I always wanted to be an illustrator. I was drawing from the age of 4 until I could remember. And at some point, my dad said to me, don't do that, you'll never make any money. And I was like, oh, okay, well, I don't know what else I would do. And then I went on this journey and then like, okay, I need to make money because if I make money, then dad will be proud of me. And then there was this whole story that I needed to kind of fulfill. And I got to a point where I realized, actually, this is not what I want to do. And this is why I was so unhappy, because I was not doing what I wanted to do. And I've since, my dad and I are best friends. Like, I love the man more than anything. And we have the most beautiful relationship. And we have been on a very, very intense and deep healing journey together. And it's all perfect. And I don't blame him. Like, I'm grateful for him. I'm grateful for the journey that I had to go on to get here, which is a different perspective than I had 5 years ago. But it's, the medicine is in the pain. And that's what I've learned over this time. And for me, what I help men with is like, what do you want? Like, what do you truly want? And what makes you happy? And once you find that out, is that aligned with your life? And if it's not, then what do you need to change? And if it is, perfect. But for most people I know, it's like we just get caught in this rat race where society is like, okay, you got to go maybe study, but then get a job and you got to make money and then get married and have kids. And it's like, yeah, but that's not for everybody. And I know a lot of people that are doing that are deeply unhappy. And every weekend they go out and they get wasted because they need to numb themselves from the reality of their existence. And I was fortunate enough that I didn't have these major responsibilities like children and mortgages and these things that kind of really would have held me back. And I could literally just give up life and go off and live in the jungle and live in ashrams and do these things because I needed to.
Yeah.
So
This is such a beautiful, I think, question to sit with of like, what do you really want? What makes you happy? And is that actually in alignment with your life? And I can imagine that there will be several people that say, I don't know. I have no idea. I'm not even thinking about what I want. I just need to make sure that I, pay my mortgage and the kids are taken care of and that, my relationship is okay and what I want, I've no idea. What would you say to somebody like that?
it really does depend on the person's situation. I was speaking to a woman the other day who was kind of late 40s, got the kids, husband's useless, she works full time, she needs to take care of everything. And we just had this discussion. And it's like, what lights you up? Like, what's the thing that you do that you just, time dissolves when you do it? Because for me, when I first started going traveling, people were like, oh, so what's your plan? What are you going to do? It's like, I don't know, actually. I'm going to spend my days meditating, doing yoga and drawing because they're the three things that I love doing. And what came of that was that I was just living in this space of self-love because I was doing the things that I love doing and I was just bringing them into my life. And by kind of living in this space where you're loving yourself and your frequency raises, and then suddenly the synchronicities start to occur and you start to attract things that are more aligned with you, and then life changes. So with this woman, it's like, yes, you have to work because you have the kids, and then you have to take the kids to school and you got to take care of them when they get home. And it's not about filling your life with only the things you love because you have responsibilities, but just whatever it is that lights you up, even if it's for an hour a day, just start to introduce that into your life. And then at some point, maybe you can start to, depending on your situation, maybe you can start to make some money out of it. And that's ultimately what I ended up doing with the drawing and the kind of the yoga and these types of things. So it's, even if it's just a little bit a day, just bring it into your life and just start to change how you feel about your day and how you feel about waking up in the morning.
Yeah, from just surviving and doing the motions towards, I call it following your fuck yes, but
I like that.
I tell this story all the time in my courses, but what's his name? From Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs, during his computer science degree, did a course on calligraphy, which makes no sense if you're a computer science major. And he didn't know why he wanted to do it, he just wanted to do it. And that was the reason eventually the Macintosh became so successful, because it actually looked good. And you don't always know beforehand why something needs to happen. If you just have a fuck yes to do pottery right now or whatever it is, go follow it, and you'll see it add up somewhere later. It'll make sense eventually. Your fuck yes is leading you somewhere.
Exactly. I think Michael Singer talks about that in the surrender experiment, where he becomes a programmer. He's like, I don't know, I just love it and I want to do it. And then suddenly from that, he becomes a billionaire. Yeah. And it's like, yeah, exactly. Follow your fuck yes. Yeah. I like that.
Yeah, it's leading you somewhere. It's leading you somewhere. I was inspired by, you spoke about like that you moved through your father wound, and that was something that you moved through, like you feel very differently now. You have this beautiful relationship with your father. Could you share a little bit about what that was like? Because I'm sure a lot of men listening to this will feel still a lot of charge and like probably very rightful victimization and things were not okay or not good enough. How did you get to this where you are now?
There was a moment maybe 6 years ago where I was on a family vacation in Nepal, and we're on a 5-day hike, and the weather was beautiful, and we were by ourselves, and I happened to have mushrooms with me, and I was like, "Hey, Dad, what do you think?" And he's like a 65-year-old at the time, maybe 63-year-old, conservative, never done anything like this before, drinks alcohol regularly, absolutely not into drugs. And he's, no, I'm not taking these stupid drugs. And he was upset because mum was upset because I brought, inverted commas, drugs into Asia. And at some point, just over the course of a few days, I started to share with him the beauty and the magic of natural plant medicine and the fear that society pushes on us. And at some point, long story short, we sat down as a family and we took mushrooms together.
Wow.
And it blew his mind and his sphere of reality wide open. And it dissolved this father-son relationship into friends, into like deep, connected humans. And from that point, I was like, fantastic, I got this amazing relationship with my father. And then as I started to get deeper into men's work, I was like, actually, no, I don't. I have this great relationship now, but it's built on a really rocky foundation. So I built up the courage when I was back at home at some point to have the conversation with him. And growing up, he was not very emotionally available, and it was very difficult to go there, to have deep conversations. And I was a little bit skeptical. I was a little bit weary and like almost afraid of like, fuck, how is he going to actually handle this? And I find at some point that I was more scared to have the conversation, and I was disempowering him by saying he's not going to be able to handle it. Right. And I went to him, and he was bathing his grandson at the time, and I said, "Can we have a conversation?" And he looks at me and he says, "I wish I could have been there for you kids like I'm going to be there for my grandson." Like, he floored me. And I said, I love you so deeply, and we have such a beautiful relationship. But for me, I need to acknowledge that when I was growing up, you weren't the father that I needed. And we were both just, bawling. And I was like, I forgive you fully. I completely forgive you. I love you, but I just need to acknowledge that. And then that opened the space for me to find out where he came from. It's like, what was your relationship with your parents growing up? What was that like? I was born 8 years after my father came home from war. So he was super traumatized. He was never there. Mum was always projecting her shit onto me, saying that I'm never going to be as good as my siblings. And then this gave me the compassion, the understanding of like, that's how he was raised. Like, how can I expect him to be any different than the way that he was? And then from that point, it just, I could feel the ancestral, like intergenerational trauma just dissolve. And since that moment, we have no issue telling each other that we love each other and that it's just, we're best friends. It's super beautiful.
Wow, what a story. That's really moving.
Mm.
That's really moving. Yeah. Yeah, notice I'm just sitting with it now. Yeah, it's such a powerful shift to actually see our parents in their journey, in their story, and where they came from, and not just and to acknowledge the pain and the missing. Yeah. And for that to coexist next to each other. Yeah.
And it's so critical, because once you understand that, once you have compassion, once you heal that relationship that you've had with your parents, it changes everything about you. It changes how you turn up in a relationship, it changes how you turn up in business, it changes how you just turn up in life. So yeah, it was a difficult yet necessary and very much profound journey.
What did it change for you?
It changed how I relate to men.
Yeah.
It it changed how I see my childhood. It changed how I am with my family. It changed the way that we interact together, my relationship with my sister and my brother and my mother. And because of the work that I do, I do have kind of a deeper understanding of the roles that we're in and how they show up and the patterns that we're in and where they came from. And that awareness allows me to kind of move through it a little bit easier. But yeah, it changed a lot.
Yeah, yeah. I've always wondered this. Is there something similar for men? Like with women's work, we always talk about like the sister wound, right? Like how women have betrayed women, and I don't know. I've been to many retreats that were just around the sister wound. Is there something similar like that to men? Is there something like a brother wound? Is there a
Oh,
Oh, okay.
oh.
Yeah.
So I just came back from retreat. I've been betrayed by men my entire life.
Okay.
And the problem, one of many problems that we have in society, especially with masculinity, is that, you know, we all suffer under the patriarchy,
Mm-hmm.
under the constellation that it is.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody suffers. And when men grow up or boys grow up not being able to trust men,
Mm-hmm.
they then shy away from men. They shy away from embracing the masculinity within themselves. And
Mm-hmm.
so they become the nice guy.
Mm-hmm.
And they have more female friends than male friends. And they become people pleasers and they can't speak their truth. And suddenly you have this inverted commas toxic masculinity on one end, which is the kind of controlling, dominating, violent man. And then you have the nice guy at the other end. And both are as dangerous as each other.
Yeah.
And this comes from this brotherhood.
Yeah. Of men not having or not trusting each other, actually.
Yeah. I mean, you grow up. I was sexually abused by my best friends when I was 10. I had my best friends steal girlfriends from me. As a teenager, would go out and we'd get into fights. I would walk down the street feeling super unsafe
Mm-hmm.
if there was a group of men there. And I didn't really realize this until I was in one of John's programs, actually, when, you know, I'm around 50 other conscious men that are just like deep in the work and deep in the healing of the masculine. And it was just, I didn't realize that I couldn't trust men until I got into this space. And then suddenly I could, and I could ask for what I needed and for what I wanted. And I felt completely safe to just reveal the most painful parts of myself. And that's, you know, it's one of the beautiful aspects of men's work, is that you get to regain that trust.
Yeah. Yeah. What a shift. Um you were touching on the patriarchy there, and I can't ignore the timing of when we're recording this. So it's a few days after the Supreme Court ruling in the United States, and everybody's feeling a lot of things. And um, yeah, I'm curious what it's brought up for you, because it's very easy to feel very, how am I going to phrase this, but almost very victimized by the patriarchy, and to remove ourselves completely from that. So I'm super curious what it's brought up for you now, exactly the divine timing where we are right now.
It has brought up a lot, actually, and it's brought up a lot because, you know, I often get shunned because I'm a white male and my privilege. And if I share something on Instagram, often it's like, yeah, but you're just a white male. It's like, yeah, okay, sure. Doesn't help. Doesn't help the conversation. And one of the things that I've noticed, and I've noticed it almost, it came up from a couple of friends who are in men's work.
Mm-hmm.
And perhaps it was a way of supporting women or kind of standing by women, but basically they're like, fuck the patriarchy.
Mm-hmm.
And I've heard this from a lot of women as well, and I understand the rage and the fury and the frustration and the anger, and it's all welcome. But the idea of fucking the patriarchy for me is just useless, and it's not helpful, and it's, if anything, it's actually more damaging, because when a boy grows up, or a teenager or an impressionable man grows up and sees or hears fuck the patriarchy, he is intrinsically part of it. He was born into it.
Yeah.
And if suddenly what he's born into is considered wrong and evil and abhorrent, he kind of naturally tends to steer away from that and to become something different. So this then puts him into this kind of nice guy role that I spoke of earlier. And the only way that the patriarchy is going to shift, in my opinion, is if it dissolves from the inside out. And the only way this is going to happen is if we have healthy, embodied, integrated men and women grow up through its ranks. And this is not going to happen if the rhetoric is fuck the patriarchy, because you're not going to have these men and women there to do it. You're going to have super angry, super bitter women, and you're going to have boys that can't stand up for themselves because they're trying to please the women. And it's repeating this same old pattern of the cycle that we're in. And I think that whole, I saw something the other day that a woman posted that was heal the patriarchy. It's like, thank you.
Yeah.
Like, how beautiful. Because it adds a different flavor, a different texture to something that we all want. And this rejection, as you said earlier, this rejection of what is, it just creates suffering. So,
I'm moved by kind of the idea that so many men and boys were raised in a world that speaks so negatively about something that's essential to men. And I've seen it in my clients, I've seen it in my friends, I've seen it in my partner, even, of just kind of this very core belief that there's something you need to make up for because your brothers, your father have probably hurt women. And I'm not saying that isn't true. I'm not saying that we need to discount that none of that has happened, or that any of that has happened. Of course not. But yeah, I've even seen it in my partner. Just this very deep core belief that there's something you need to make up for, and that there's something somewhere inherently dangerous, or inherently wrong about you, and to then also be in this time when, like, in the conscious communities where we are now, where everybody's like, masculinity, like, embrace your masculinity, and it's so confusing because you've heard most of your life that patriarchy is dangerous, men are dangerous. And so that I feel for how confusing that must be of hearing, especially if you're raised by only women, which I think a lot of men are, to constantly have heard that there's something wrong. There's something wrong. Your dad was shitty. He's shitty. They're shitty. Like, men are unsafe. And so I feel for that. I really feel for that. And I did a post myself on after the ruling of just saying, like, I'm not even going into what it means or what it doesn't mean, and just that it's calling our men into a different role. Like, how can we work with what is here rather than reject everything and pretend we're not part of it? Because we are part of it. We're in it. We're all in it. We're gonna have to move with it. So what is happening in the world right now? Well, maybe, I don't know, we're all, like, men are being called to learn non-ejaculation practices or conscious ejaculation practices, right? And this is more about flowing with it rather than, well, fuck it, I'm out. Right? Which is a very different energy.
Yeah. And I think if people do want to fuck the patriarchy, then start with start with the wounded masculine inside of themselves.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, start to heal yourself, because the the most profound way to fuck the patriarchy is by healing yourself. And we ultimately, yes, in an ideal world, we want this really incredibly beautiful union of the masculine and feminine within society. But the only way that is going to happen is once we have that within inside of each and every one of us. So you can sit back and you can throw stones and say, fuck the patriarchy, this sucks. I'm oppressed and this is going on with me. And it's like, yeah, okay. And do something about it. Like, take ownership and empower yourself and just fucking heal yourself. And as far as kind of yes, I mean, learning to, for me, this is um, quite a large topic in my life. The whole semen retention aspect. I came from premature ejaculation, porn addiction, erectile dysfunction, this whole kind of wounded sexuality, getting into tantra and into polarity and intimacy, and now that whole arc of full-bodied orgasms and semen retention. And for me, it's the most powerful practice I've ever experienced. And if we could teach young boys the power of their sexual energy and how to cultivate it, it would be an incredibly different world. But free porn is it's a weaponized tool to keep men lethargic and depleted and useless. And, you know, if we could teach communication and consent and, like, you know, we're going to make love, and yes, maybe we're using contraception and maybe you're not going to ejaculate, but would you be willing or able to have a child if that happened? Yeah. Yes, perfect, let's do it. No, well, you know, actually maybe you're not I wouldn't want to have a child with you anyway, so, you know, maybe we just don't have sex. So there's this baseline conversation that needs to happen. And then when, you know, regardless of whether it gets a woman pregnant, stops a woman from getting pregnant, every man should practice semen retention, because it will change his life. And it will change how he shows up in the world, and it will change how he makes love, and it will change his pleasure, and it just changes everything. And yeah, I think it's
also very different for the women that date them, because it's funny, now I'm talking to you, I realize it feels very similar. The nice guy feels very dangerous, because the nice guy, you could feel that he's very angry and he won't allow that in himself, and he's just a pressure cooker that at some point is gonna explode, and he's not taking care of himself. So I now have to do it. So I find the nice guy like makes my whole nervous system freeze, because it looks like love, but it doesn't feel like it, and it's a confusing thing to receive. Um, but there's something about when a man isn't in control of his ejaculation, there's something about that where I can feel that he's not empowered within himself. I can feel that there's something ruling him. And there's something he doesn't have yet ownership over, and that in a feminine body registers as, I need to, you're a little, there's something danger, or not danger, I don't necessarily want to call it that, but it registers as I have to stay alert, because there's something in you that you are not completely, that you don't have within you. You are not in control of that. You don't have the ownership, and you are lived by it. And you know, I realize I'm in maybe a different slice of society for the past few years, like some of more of my guests on the podcast are, and I'm sure you are too. For me, it's not normal anymore. The past 5-6 years, it's not normal to me that a man ejaculates, and just being in a very different ejaculation culture, it is insane to me that this was ever normal. It is completely insane to me that this was ever normal, and it creates a completely different man when a man is in control. because my man decides. He decides. I don't decide. He decides. And I feel that there's something. I don't have that power over him. I normally always have the power. I don't have that power of him. So there's actually a surrender at a way deeper level I can do towards him that I could that I never did. Right? And so it's a massive difference. The same as a nice guy that actually finds his darkness, it's actually it feels safer. It
Mm.
makes my body go "Ugh." And it's the same with a man who finds his empowerment over his ejaculation. Yeah.
I wrote something a little while ago. If a woman can control your ejaculation, she can control
Mm-hmm.
and will control everything because
Mm-hmm.
she knows exactly what she needs to do to get you to do
Yeah.
whatever she wants.
Yeah.
And this is the nice guy. This is like somebody that will, oh, yes, whatever you, yes, sir, yes, ma'am, no, whatever you need. It's like it has created a culture of relationships where the woman has had to step into her masculinity and she fucking hates it, but she has no choice because this guy can't stand up for himself. He can't lead the relationship because he does whatever she wants, and that's actually not what she wants. Um, and the other piece of this is because I teach men this process of semen retention, they come to me and they're like, my partner is angry because I don't ejaculate.
Oh yeah.
And it stirs something up in some shadow part of the woman of like,
Oh
I need him to ejaculate for my validation.
yeah.
And I need it because I just want it and that's what I'm used to. Rather than this kind of taking the goal out of lovemaking and just experiencing the utter bliss of every moment for as many moments as you enjoy. So
Oh
maybe
yeah.
actually maybe I'll flip it. Maybe I've got a question for you. What do you say to the women of men who are trying to retain their ejaculation?
So let me first acknowledge that this is definitely what happens. When I was in like a few years ago, when for me this wasn't normal yet, and I was dating men who weren't ejaculating, I had the exact same response. Not only that it felt like a validation, it was also that my body was just used to it. Like I felt like that needed to happen, and so there was definitely a process of just of facing my own stuff, facing what I had made all of this mean, and how comfortable it was to just have sex where the goal is for the man to come. That was comfortable as hell. It was really nice because there we could just do the automated script, and all of a sudden the automated script was gone, and now he was actually connecting to me and wanting me to connect to him, which was totally different. So there is that phase. So I think when we get to normalizing women, that there is an attachment to ejaculation both from men and from women. There's an attachment on both sides. Here's the thing: if your man is, what's the word? If your man is wanting to show up for this, it's a very vulnerable thing to do. It's really new territory for both of you, and you get to show up for it as a partnership. It's not him dealing with this and breathing through not coming, right? That's not just him doing the work. It's something you do as a partnership. And I think we sometimes forget that. We both have agreed for my partner to have a certain ejaculation practice. So I'm supporting him in that. I take as much ownership over it almost as he does. So I don't judge him, I don't make it wrong, I don't become impatient. We sit with it as a partnership, not just a male body doing his thing. Yeah, for me that's a big
Beautiful.
shift.
And the process, the journey of it is so much more rapid when the woman is involved and she's
Yeah.
like, slow down, you've stopped
Yeah.
breathing, sublimate, still okay, continue to breathe, and when she's part of it, rather than come on, I want you to ejaculate, and when it's just this, it's very, it has the opposite effect of
Well,
what
because
we're
in the
trying to aim
female
for.
body, like there's an evolutionary thing in every female body that wants him to. I still have that response. I want him to. A part of my body wants him to. So I have to slow myself down. I have to do just as much of practice as he does. When that energy goes like, it's so easy to fall back into it and to just think, okay, let's that happen. Like, I want that to happen, right? That's biology happening. Of course I want that to happen, to be like, we're grounding the energy together. It's not just him grounding the energy. I have to ground my energy. I have to ground my body. I have to relax my body, relax my yoni, all these things. And so it's a communal practice. It's not just a him practice. Because, yeah, without being crass, but like the feminine's like vagina will literally start pulling on him. And so if you're not aware of that, if you don't have the awareness of that in your body, like, you gotta slow down, because, you know, a black belt, like, non-ejaculation, I can't stop either then when that's happening. So to actually relax both of you, become aware of like when you want to just collapse into the wave happening. And so it's not just a one-person practice, it's a two-person practice. And my gosh, well, do you get a different man?
Yes, you do.
It's totally different. Yeah, because what you were saying, like an porn addiction and just this kind of habitual masturbation, which is normal for most of our men, is also what keeps them tired and depressed and deflated and not having the energy. The things that happen, when I've seen it in so many men, the things that happen when they start not necessarily non-ejaculating, but just having choice over the matter. Different man. That's a man erect in himself. Yeah. What do you, can you share me a little bit about moving out of porn addiction? Because I think this is also a normal for many people. And it's accepted, and it's kind of just part of our lifestyle.
For me, when I realized the damage that it was doing, it made it quite easy to kind of step away. That my premature ejaculation, erectile dysfunction was kind of pretty much the result of being addicted to porn and incessantly ejaculating. Yeah. And it was at a time where I was deep in practice, and I would go on these silent retreats that would last for weeks at a time, and you just don't do it there. So my first teacher said, go for 7 weeks without ejaculating and see what happens. And I was like, 7 weeks, dude, I can't go 7 hours. Like, this is just, whoa. But I was going into 40 days of silence, and it was like, okay, well, if I stop now, then by the end of that, that'll be 7 weeks. And I got to like the 33rd day or something, and I had a wet dream. I'd had 2 wet dreams in my entire life. And I had one, and I was just like, there's a piece that's missing. And what he didn't teach, which was kind of not the healthiest way to do it, he's like, just stop. And that's not the answer. You don't just stop pleasuring. You don't just stop ejaculating. I mean, you stop ejaculating, but you don't stop. The energy is there, and you need to move the energy. And if you don't move the energy, it results in blue balls, and it results in wet dreams, and and frustration, and all of these things. So for me, I didn't just quit porn and kind of, okay, now what? It was kind of, I'm quitting porn because I'm going to do semen retention, because I'm going on this journey. I actually want to learn how to have full-bodied orgasms. Like, that was my path. And I've had clients that watch 20 to 30 hours of porn a week, and I'm like, fuck, maybe I wasn't addicted. Ultimately, what all porn is doing is numbing you. It's like a drug, and it's numbing you from actually living a life that you just don't want to be in. And all of these addictions, when you bring meaning into your life, when you bring purpose into your life, these things just fade away. And you can't just stop it. You need to replace it with something. And if you have nothing to replace it with, then it's challenging.
You've just said something so important, I think. So these are the result of not having purpose in your life. We know this, right? I know there's like a what's called research around addiction, that addiction happens because it's a substitute for connection, and the moment people find connection, the addiction doesn't need to happen. And they find that friendship almost in whatever that addiction is.
Yeah.
And to feel that something like porn addiction is connected to a lack of purpose. Because I've seen this so often in men, that the moment there's a purpose, the moment that, I don't know, the moment I enlist my boyfriend, right? I enlist him, I ask him to help me with something, or yeah, to help me out with something. That's such a strong force in a man. It's like, oh, I want to show up for you. I want to be there for you. I want to take care of you. I feel useful. I feel important. I feel like I matter. It's such a beautiful energy to wake up in a man. And I could so imagine that, I don't know, if you just go do the job and pay the mortgage and do the groceries, that energy doesn't get woken up. And that's such a hole. I can totally feel that.
Mm.
Yeah.
And I would say that most guys that lack purpose,
Mm-hmm.
or are not actually seeking their purpose, they would, it's very difficult to have a semen retention practice and not be on some kind of mission.
Right. I totally get that.
So,
yeah.
And the ejaculation just keeps us depleted, and it keeps us stuck, and it keeps us in this space of like, well, maybe tomorrow.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I mean, the other thing about porn is, especially around sexual trauma, porn is easy. You don't have to worry about getting it up. You don't have to worry about being vulnerable. You don't have to worry about the woman, what size your cock is. You don't have to worry about any of that. You can pretend that you are a fucking sex god. So it's easy. And I get it. I absolutely get it. And I also know deeply how powerful it is when you can just fucking let it go and, put on your big boy pants and just fucking attack life from a different way.
I love this image of like the warrior at the beginning of a battle,
Mm-hmm.
really afraid, but walking into it anyways.
Yeah.
And I think that's something most men don't realize, that there's such a beautiful quality to not completely having your shit together and doing it anyways.
Yeah, exactly.
There's something in that. There's something in that. Yeah. What to you is then purpose? Because me and my boyfriend talk about it all the time. Where like it feels like such an empty word, right? Is it knowing what you want to do in your career? Is it, I don't know, having some kind of action, like accountability and action plan? Like, what is it? What is purpose? What is mission? Because I could feel you. I could feel you, like how addiction is connected to this lack of purpose and this lack of a mission. But then real life, what is it actually? What is it for you?
For me, it revolves around helping men, and helping men kind of realize deeply clarity in their life and what it is that they want to get to, and healing, and kind of moving beyond the story and the pain and the trauma. And it's just, my purpose is a conglomeration of kind of all of the work that I've done on myself and the direction that I'm on in this moment. And your purpose can be anything. Like, perhaps your purpose is finding your purpose. Perhaps your purpose is getting up in the morning and going to the store to get some paint because you got to paint your apartment. Like, whatever it is, just there needs to be some meaning behind it. 13 euros an hour at a vintage store. That's probably not your purpose. there's probably something that is just yearning to be revealed that will not be revealed if you continually distract yourself with your phone or with porn or with drugs or with alcohol or whatever it is. So David Data speaks about going sitting somewhere for 4 or 5 days and just doing nothing with no distractions. And at some point, there's going to be a part of you that starts to kind of yearn to get done. And unfortunately, we live in a society where we're just so easily distracted. And no, that's too uncomfortable. I'm not going to do that. You go to the toilet, you take your phone with you because, oh my God, 3 minutes without your phone is just too much. So it's this constant distraction. No wonder there's so many people without purpose.
Yeah, I love that. I've never felt the connection between purpose and actually the doing nothing. And then feeling what arises. Because I think like men who are also more on this like conscious self-development path, I've seen it where they get actually addicted to the morning practice and the breath work and the mantras and the positive thinking and the shadow work, and you know, it becomes a rigid like I need to do that every morning. And it's the same restlessness that happens when somebody's constantly on their phone. And to actually come back to let me just sit here and then wait for what comes up and just sit here and actually just be and do nothing. Yeah, I love that.
It's the ancient tradition of the vision quest where you go sit in the mountain for 4 days without food and water and see what happens. And it's a powerful process.
Yeah, because we actually don't want to hang out with ourselves, probably.
No, I know.
Because there's some uncomfortable shit there.
Oh. It's yeah, I've done a few things where it's like it's me and myself and my mind. It's like, okay, I didn't realize how dark that was. It's like, yeah, I've done a few things where I've kind of forced myself to sit in spaces where there's nothing but me and my thoughts. And you do that over long or extended periods of time, and magic starts to happen. And there is a real yearning that kind of just comes up, and it's like, fuck, as soon as I get out of here, this is what I have to do. And then you go and do it, and then see what comes of that, because it's typically just a stepping stone for the next thing. So
yeah, I love that, waiting for the energy of I gotta go do something now. Yeah, Nic, thank you so much for being here today. I really, really appreciate you and the way you look at the world, and yeah, you can clearly feel your heart, but there's a masculine groundedness to it that's really yummy to listen to and really, really relaxing to be around, I think is the word. So thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
If people want to learn more about you, if they want to find out more about you, where can they find you?
So mostly on Instagram at Nic Warner is where everything goes up. Depending on when this airs, I have a lot going on this summer, especially for men. And there's some intimacy retreats, programs for couples also. So everything can be found at my Instagram.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.